Yep, sure. Thank you everyone for joining the session today. My name is Tariq Sheikh. I am the Director of Collaboration Solutions at SMP. I run the collaboration practice here at SMP. Today, we are really going to be providing an overview of Cisco collaboration solution. Dan will be starting off on the providing the overview, and I will cover the contact center side of things, and followed by a closing that will be done by Sean Wilson, our VP of Client Solutions. So take it away, Dan.
All right. Well, thanks everybody for coming. I am a collaboration architect at SMP. My primary job is to take a interest in what's going on in your business and figure out how we can use collaboration technologies to further enhance what you're doing, speed up your time to market. So what we're going to talk about today, realistically, is the Cisco collaboration portfolio. So we're going to cover some basics. So if you're not familiar with the portfolio, we're going to cover that. Then we're also going to cover some recent updates, as well as some things that are going to happen in the next quarter or so. So for our agenda, we have the solution overview, endpoints, meetings, calling, and contact center. And then we'll cover multiple items underneath each of those. So the Cisco solution is focused around Cisco Webex now. It's really a connective tissue, and the platform itself will connect into both the premise platforms as well as the cloud. We're going to go into each and every one of these to an extent. But the key is, moving forward, there's one single application that can deliver your call control, your messaging, meetings, and more. And that is Webex Teams. So the way this looks, being a single platform, is going to make life a lot easier for a lot of people. If you don't have Cisco today, you should know that Cisco has multiple different solutions. We have a cloud calling solution, UCM Cloud and Webex Calling. There's also the industry leader for premise, which is UCM, or Unified Communications Manager. And then Cisco also offers a wide array of IP phones and room devices, and also the messaging that backs up Webex Teams. All of that can be managed through a single portal called Webex Control Hub. And the future application, what you might see as unified application, or the unified app, is going to be, it's Webex Teams with some additional functionality built right into it. But the key is, from the ground up, Cisco is built security first. It's not an afterthought. It's not something that's bolted on. It's not an additional license. This platform is extremely secure. There's some very rich white papers that we can get in your hands if you have any questions. But rest assured, it's passed the PCI, HIPAA type regulations and everything else. And the key is, over time, we're going to also be adding additional functionality like third-party PBX integration. So this is going to be one place to go to manage all of our stuff, and you're going to have one application delivered to your desktop. In this application, the unified application, again, it's Webex Teams. It's not a new application. It's just an evolving application. It's going to have capabilities of message, callings, and meetings, meetings only. It can morph to whatever you need. And it's going to be managed through Control Hub. So this platform gives us a serious advantage with security. So some of the other platforms out there are very point product solutions. And what ends up happening is you may have a very good security there, but what happens if you need to collaborate with somebody outside of your organization? Well, what tends to happen in that scenario is you go into some sort of a guest privilege, and then the data that you are sending from your organization basically goes into a black hole, and your IT department wouldn't know anything about it. There's a lot of issues with something like that. So when we're talking about collaboration, we're not just talking internal, but internal and external. And it's even more important now that we can't all be in the same room all the time. So here's some examples of the security and compliance that's really built around the Cisco Webex portfolio. And then again, the fact that Webex is the connective tissue. Most people think of Webex is Webex Meetings, like we're using Event Center today, but the same overall solution of Webex as a meeting platform. And that's still very much alive and doing quite well. But when we're talking about Webex, it's the overall artificial intelligence cloud application that Cisco is using to build out to calling, message meetings, and then it's also connective tissue to, our users as well as the call control. And all this has been working out quite well for Cisco. Today, Cisco is sitting about 45% of on-premise calling market share. Number one in collaboration in general, and 61% in cloud. So that's a pretty bold number. Also, there's 93 million IP phones. They're very, very prevalent out there. You've seen them probably on a favorite TV show or something as well. They're in from the highest security, right on the president's desk, all the way down to my desk over here. And the meetings and market share and video endpoints, there's been some massive leap forwards, and that's really what we're going to cover today. So when we get into the endpoints, there are IP phones, headsets, video endpoints, and we're going to talk about the soft phone capabilities and some features as well. But the important thing to know is that the line of IP phones, which goes from the 6800 to the 8800 series, and there's a couple that are outliers on that too. Most of these phones can exist both in the cloud as well as on-premise. And why that should matter to you is there's a big to-do about cloud calling. If you don't have a good platform today and you're looking to get into cloud, you have Cisco's entire portfolio of IP phones, with the exception of a couple phones that can exist on that platform. If you're an existing install, if you have 7800 and 8800 series phones, most of them can migrate right over, no problem. But for our people who are just starting out, or maybe you need to have a remote site and your premise platform just cannot do what you need it to do, and you really can't spend a lot of money, the 6800 series is a phenomenal line of IP phones. There's one that's not actually listed on here, which is the 6821. That's the extremely basic one. But we've also found a pretty good market for people who are working from home with the 6861 right in the middle. That phone is powered with an AC power brick, so you don't have to ask your employees if they have PoE at home. Most people don't. And it also is Wi-Fi, so you don't have to worry about, is there Ethernet port anywhere near their home router? And as people are going between work in an office environment and working from home, it's nice to know that you can have that physical device in the event that maybe your PC just can't handle video traffic or audio traffic across it. So it's here. IP phones are not going anywhere. And here's a quick comparison. We can definitely get you this data over. I'm not expecting you to memorize all of it, but what I wanted to show you here is we go all the way from that extremely basic 6821 that we talked about, all the way up to a color model with gigabit switch ports. And there's also an expansion module capability too. In the cloud world, we have the 6825, which is a decked phone. This is actually a pretty slick phone. I have one right here. I don't know if the blur is going to have any issue with it. But this phone is it's great for classroom environments or warehouses or something like that. It's not Wi-Fi, so you don't have to worry about whether or not your Wi-Fi network is ready to handle VoIP traffic across it. This has a self-contained decked network. Multiple different cell top, the little micro cells that are right in front of you here, this DBS 210, they can be paired together to cover larger buildings too. And then the 7800 series is Cisco's entry within the premise market, but all these phones are also compatible in the cloud. These are very, very massively deployed. They're very popular. The 7841, as you can see, that is the model that has the gigabit switch port. So that's the one that we'd recommend if you need a really basic phone. And then there's the 8800 series phones, which are the Cisco flagship models. We have video and non-video versions, and these also offer, some models have Wi-Fi, some options have the expansion module. So there really is a phone to offer in this entire suite for anybody. And then the other thing is, with our people who are working from home, what headset are they using? Because most of the time, you're not going to have somebody who's going to want to take a phone off hook and actually talk into the phone itself. That's something that we don't do often. And if we did, we probably did it in the office environment for a quick call. But we can't actually work that way at home. Or if you're in a contact center, you're not going to be able to work, holding that up while also typing at the same time. It just won't work. So headsets tend to be an afterthought for a lot of people. Cisco has an entire line of headsets. And these are not rebranded headsets. These are built from Cisco from the ground up. There's the 520 series all the way up to the 730. There's noise cancellation and all sorts of really robust features available. The awesome thing about these headsets are they have basically a very unique thing that they can do, and then the management is also awesome too. So let's get into that. So if you were to plug in one of these headsets into one of the 8800 series phones, for example, and there's a similar version of this on the 7800s and as well, you're going to get this thing that's going to pop up automatically, and you can actually tune the audio so it sounds better for you as a user, right? You can change if it's warmer or brighter as far as the tone is concerned, and check the microphone to make sure that it's not too loud, because there's always that guy who comes in screaming on the phone, right? Or somebody who's just a little bit too quiet. We can adjust all that right on the IP phone. And it just happens when you plug it in. It's not something you have to go hunt for, which is a very awesome experience. And then the other thing is, besides actually configuring it as a user, how do we manage that? So in Call Manager, so CUCM, we'll talk about that in a little while too. That's the premise offer. We can actually push policy and roll out headsets by the thousands very easily. You can define any parameter that you want and actually push it down. Also, we can manage the firmware right from Call Manager. It requires a special version of Call Manager, but most people are running it. If not, the next device pack that we would install into your Call Manager will give you that capability. And if you want to know more about that, please let us know when we follow up. And then on Control Hub, you also get management capabilities too. And this follows for both the cloud calling market, as well as somebody who maybe doesn't even have a phone. Maybe they're just using Webex and they're in Webex Control Hub anyway. All these headsets can be managed right from there. And then this is what we can do in Control Hub. We can do inventory management, firmware management, and both of those things are additional licenses and very expensive if you're looking at the competition. And then we can do analytics and diagnostics and configure everything remotely. And the great thing is, if we're troubleshooting a call, all the logs for these headsets automatically come through the IP phones or through the application. So whether we're on the phone with Cisco or SMP's on the phone and we're troubleshooting something on your behalf, all that information will be right there. So it's one place to get your data and one less thing that we have to hunt down. And then on Call Manager, there's some additional capabilities that we don't have on the cloud yet. And a lot of the cloud stuff is actually coming in. But if you're using what's called RTMT for actually monitoring, so these are for our more advanced and robust call control needs, we can actually keep an eye on any triggers that happen right from the headset. And then there's also some additional capabilities of these headsets that are coming, and we'll talk about that when we actually get into the platforms themselves. So first, we're going to talk about the video endpoints. There's some pretty significant advancements that have happened here, but this might be a conference room that you have. This is not an ideal scenario. If you take a look, there's a disjointed amount of collaboration technologies, should we say, where we've got whiteboard over here, we got a post-it board over here, a siloed video endpoint that's probably not connected to anything else here, and a projector, and then there's more that'll build out as the slide builds out. We have the scenario that an end user is going to come into this room and they're just not even going to know how to use it. There's just too much going on. So in the Cisco world, he said enough's enough. This is just not working. We have users who are breaking stuff. They have no idea how they actually use it. The overall solution is just clunky, so they think it doesn't work because it may or may not work. At the end of the day, it can be streamlined into just a single panel on the wall. This is a Webex Boards. This is just one example. This is an all-in-one unit. All the microphones are in here. The camera's in here. Everything's right there. We can put a Touch 10, which is Cisco's touch controller, on the table if you want it, or we can control it right from our unified application. But this is what it can streamline into. So the portfolio has increased. So there's a few new ones that we're going to talk about today. The Desk Pro, which is Cisco's new flagship desktop endpoint. There's the Room USB, which is derived from the RoomKit Mini. We'll get into that. There's the Cisco Webex Room Panorama, which is the new flagship immersive endpoint replacing the IX5000. There's a new 700 series headset. I'm not going to really talk more about that, but I just wanted to make mention of it. That's the one with the active noise cancellation and some advanced Bluetooth technologies. And then there's the Room Phone. We'll touch upon those. So this experience, and again, here's the Touch 10 right on the table, so you could have a touch controller if you want it. It's an option. This experience really is all about making life easier for the end user. So as we get back to going into the office, a lot of people just don't want to touch anything. A while ago, Cisco introduced Webex Assistant, and you can just say, "Okay, Webex," and your command. A future release is going to allow developers to actually add custom triggers, so that stuff's coming. Well, it's really awesome if you were to actually schedule a Webex meeting and you add this room as a participant. When your meeting is actually going to start, you can walk in and it'll say, "Hi, would you like to start your meeting?" And all you'll have to do is say yes. If you didn't schedule the room, you could walk in and through a wireless sharing technology called proximity, you just say, "Okay, Webex, join my meeting," like it's on the screen. And because it's paired to your device, whether it's an iPhone, Android phone, your MacBook, or your PC, your identity is automatically synced through there securely, and your meeting will just start. This is what I like to consider a zero button to push. In the Cisco world, we've been aiming for one button. So you get that green join button right on your screen, right on the touch controller when you walk in, and you tap that button and it joins audio and video all together within like 1 second into a meeting. That's been a phenomenal experience. People love it. But this is the next chapter. This is all powered by artificial intelligence. And coming soon, there's also going to be the ability for you to say, "Okay, Webex, schedule this room for 11 o'clock. Pretty awesome. And then all these endpoints. So let's go back real quick here. So this is an all-in-one endpoint, just as an example. There's actually 4 cameras up here in this specific endpoint. All the endpoints have at least one camera, obviously, if they're a video endpoint. But the really awesome thing that they can do is they can do people detection. So we'll actually take a look at the room and it will frame it to be best for who's in the room. So you could deploy a video endpoint and have this view over to the left where we have somebody completely on the other side of the room. And it really limits the immersion into that scenario. So the endpoint can actually do this automatically. That's called best overview. And then when you have multiple people in the room, granted, this is an older picture, so people will probably end up being even further spread apart, which makes this even more important. But the endpoint can actually figure out who's in the room, who's talking via facial recognition, and it frames the speaker. That's called speaker tracking. Now, all of this is really built into these endpoints. This is what it's doing on the back end. If we were to look at it on screen, you would see this big rectangle. That's what you would actually see on the far end. But it's counting people. We've been talking about this for years. So people count is built right into these endpoints, all the room series endpoints. But now what we can do is actually take that data and do something meaningful for it. So the next thing that has happened is in what's called workspaces now in Webex Control Hub, we actually get room sensors built. The room sensors are built in. It'll tell you the ambient noise of the room itself, how many people are in it, and we can enforce limits. So what can end up happening is you could set the room capacity to 2, And the minute a third person comes in, it will say, you have exceeded capacity. Your room capacity is 2. And we could do a bunch of different things with this. This is just one example. This is really available right out of the box now. The other thing is, we talked about Assistant. The facial count, because the people count has been happening. You see the little rectangles here. What we can actually do is overlay your names, and coming soon will be titles right on screen for the first 60 seconds of the call. That really helps you, especially if you have a geographically spread apart workforce, or you're starting to onboard new people in a COVID world and you don't know who they are or what their titles are. This is right here. And the onboard procedure is extremely easy. Basically, just take a picture right on Control Hub as a user, and you can onboard yourself in a matter of seconds. And then lastly, all these endpoints have been designed for audio fidelity. So if you've ever been in a meeting and you have terrible audio quality, it actually subtly makes you more tired. It makes you work harder to understand what's going on. So the endpoints have been designed from the ground up with high fidelity audio and some really awesome audio technology to give you a full immersion. So when you walk into that room, you're going to hear a wideband audio. You're going to hear great noise, and you can even attach subwoofers and stuff if you really want to go to the extra mile. But all of it can be managed through Control Hub. Now, if you have an endpoint that's registered to Call Manager, I have a new development for you, and we'll talk about that in a moment. But Control Hub really is the single pane of glass to manage and diagnose and look at all your analytics. Again, this is admin.webex.com, and you have to be set up as an administrator. But everything is here. We're going to keep going here, whether we're on-premise or cloud. Webex Control Hub is where you're really going to get a lot of this data. So again, some more examples of diagnostics, just so you can see some different charts. There are a significant amount of enhancements that are happening at the end of July and throughout August. So if you're familiar with diagnostics and analytics, come back in about 2 weeks and you're going to see some dramatic improvements. There's a lot of new reports, there's new charts, and there's a lot more telemetry data available to you. And then built underneath the entire platform is a really robust platform called Collaboration Edge. It's abbreviated as CE. That's the software that is underlying on this entire thing. And what that allows us to do is it has API hooks for many, many, many different things. So what we can do, and SMP does this regularly, so if you'd like to know what we could do in our AV practice, it's some pretty powerful stuff. We can actually control the lights in the room, TVs in the room, or you name it. It could be a VCR if you really want it to be. I mean, we can honestly do pretty much anything. We may need some external stuff depending on what we're talking about. But at the end of the day, we can completely front end your entire room and have it controlled exclusively from the Touch 10. And what that does is allows you to have a single platform to be able to allow your end users to walk into the room. You remember that first picture where we had the Post-it, the whiteboard, the siloed video endpoint, the projector. Now this is the user's place to go. It's right here. And then again, the Webex Assistant can control all this stuff. And if it can't, at this time, we can actually program custom triggers on a very near release. I believe it's in the next few weeks. And then I told you for our call manager customers, people who are on a communications manager and have their endpoints registered to UCM, there's the new concept of what's called Webex Edge for devices. And this is actually a very awesome solution. It allows you to maintain your registration to Call Manager and everything that you love about your Call Manager, but link those endpoints right into Control Hub so you can keep all the data in the cloud where it's secure and you get all the advanced reports. And for our Flex customers, it's already included. You do get access to a lot of the cloud features too. Not 100% of the cloud features, but a lot of them that are not there today are coming. And one of the big ones that people asked for was the Webex Assistant. Because Assistant requires the certain AI technologies, you can't park that on site. It's just not possible because the amount of machine learning that's actually done to do that. So this Edge for Devices allows your video endpoints to effectively register to 2 places at once. Your endpoints both on-prem and in the cloud. Your dial plan is unaffected for our users who have Call Manager, but you also do get some additional capabilities like the hybrid calendar connector, which can replace things like TMS and TMS-XE for some customers as well. So if you'd like to know more about that, it's actually a pretty slick solution. I have some very good content on this. You will see this slide a couple times throughout, but it's important for you to know that these video endpoints that we're going to go over, and I have a few that I'm going to touch upon, any of these can register to Call Manager on-premise, to the Webex Control Hub in the cloud, or both at the same time. So what's going to end up happening is you could roll out the RoomKit Mini, which is really made for huddle spaces up to 5 people. And we've also had people deployed even at their houses because it's very cost effective, all the way up to our large rooms on the RoomKit Pro. And I'm going to focus on those 2. There's also the RoomKit and the RoomKit Plus, which we honestly probably sell more of than anything. And these endpoints really cover any solution. But the good news is you have one underlying architecture, one underlying software, one place to program against, and then also you get a unified experience. And if you start on-prem today and you want to move to the cloud, you don't have to rip out that endpoint. That endpoint can go to both places at the same time, or we can migrate it completely to the cloud if you want. Okay. So let's look at the RoomKit Mini. I'm not going to spend a ton of time on this because you may already be familiar with it, but it's Cisco's huddle endpoint. It's got 120 degree field of view, and it has beamforming microphones, which is really awesome because what ends up happening is a lot of huddle spaces have actually been created by subdivided conference rooms. And what ends up happening is people hang drywall on 2x4s and there's nothing in between. So what ends up happening is you have this extreme ricochet of your voice, especially if you have somebody like has a deeper voice, their voice will bounce off the walls. There's nothing there to absorb it, and it just doesn't sound good. And on the other side, you will always have somebody who's louder than you on a conference call on the other endpoint. That's just what's going to happen. And what this endpoint does is it has directional beamforming microphones. So only the people who are within the field of view of the camera are going to get picked up. Anything that's behind you or to the side of you, it's not going to hear it. It's just going to, it's like a cone of silence, right? We're going to be in here. If you're in the field of view, you're on the microphone. If not, you're not. And all these endpoints do an auto wake. So you walk in, if your device pairs to it, it'll automatically wake up. And then all of them offer wired and wireless sharing. And then the other thing is too, because some of the other vendors don't allow it, if you have a high quality Wi-Fi network, any of the endpoints from Cisco, from the RoomKit Mini all the way up to the RoomKit Pro, so that integrator kit can all live on wireless. So though you may question, should I do that? I mean, obviously, if we have an Ethernet connection, we prefer that because it's more predictable. But know you have that flexibility. And again, these endpoints can work both on-prem and in the cloud and can be managed by pretty much anything out there. They all have sensors built into them. Now, there are some enhancements coming on with sensors and some new stuff that I can't quite talk to you about yet. But you should know there are sensors built into these endpoints already. So if you were to deploy one of these endpoints to the cloud, you can check how many people are in there. You can also see what the ambient noise is, as well as the active noise, which the nice thing about that is you could start to see maybe if you have a very loud HVAC vent, maybe that's not the best place for the video endpoint to be because it can be very distracting. And then there's a lot more sensors coming out, a lot more capabilities coming out. We'll talk about those soon. And again, this workspace utilization is the replacement of the places. If you're familiar with Webex Control Hub, this is what it looks like today, right? This just came out maybe a month ago, and you can see, again, the audio. So this is the ambient noise and the current sound level, as well as how many people are in it. And then if it's occupied, makes it very easy for planning. Now there's some more stuff coming. Like I said, historical tracking is coming out, and then some insight trends, which are pretty important. So what was going to end up happening is we can have these rooms actually report on how they're being utilized to say whether or not people are using the right room for the right purpose. And then it'll allow you to actually keep your spend on track. So here's the RoomKit Mini. This is the little guy from Cisco. It actually won an award for just how streamlined it looks. It is white. It's got a fabric cover. SMP also offers custom covers that we can actually change, and we could actually turn this red if you're SMP. We've done that before on our endpoints if you've been in our Experience Center. We turn it green, blue, purple. As long as we can get the fabric, we can actually do it. Our AV guys are awesome. But the point is, this is an all-in-one media bar. It's actually fanless. It's very simple to set up. There's no house PC required. This has got a built-in codec. So the endpoint is actually doing the call. To set this up, all you need to do is plug in a power connection, a connection to your TV, and then the actual Touch 10 controller can actually be powered through a built-in PoE injector that's right in the endpoint. And again, this connection to the LAN, the wired Ethernet connection, is optional. So you can actually have this as streamlined as 3. Now you can have HDMI in as well if you want to have that, or if you want to just exclusively do wireless sharing, you have a very simple, streamlined, stable video solution. And this technology really goes above and beyond, and it follows through. But one of the things that's unique about the RoomKit, I actually have to back up, is it actually has a USB-C pass-through. And what that allows you to do is if you have a third-party meeting platform and you want to just connect to that, you can connect the USB-C connection right into your laptop, and you could be right on that platform. It will utilize the high-fidelity audio, the high-fidelity microphones, as well as that really awesome camera, which is what I'm going to talk about next. All these sensors from Cisco are at least 4K. We're projecting 1080p, and the digital cropping is done within that, and all the technology we talked about before. So this little guy does auto framing, and it also does a dewarping. So if you've looked at any of the other competitors, what ends up happening is you get a fisheye type scenario, and this will actually dewarp it, so it looks like everybody's right next to each other like they are in real world, which is really ideal. Again, Wi-Fi, pretty much everything out there right now, and wireless sharing as well. And then one other thing I wanted to talk about, and this is true for the RoomKit, the Mini, the RoomKit, and the RoomKit Plus with the quad cam itself. There are multiple microphones built into this. They are balanced, which means depending on which one we're talking about, there's actually a center speaker that rear fires the opposite direction that you are sitting in, which is typically a wall. And why that's important is it stops everything from vibrating. Because if you have a sound bar that's pushing out a lot of audio, it can vibrate. It will actually balance it right out. It's actually pretty slick technology. So the RoomKit Mini can also be pulled into another solution with Samsung and their flip monitor. And what this does is allows you to connect the RoomKit Mini into a touch flip monitor and effectively have a sort of Webex board solution. It's not 100% parity, but I wanted to make mention of that. And then here's a comparison against the Webex board, and we'll get more into the Webex board. Now going to the other end, the RoomKit Pro. This is the integrator codec. We have multiple different HDMI inputs, HDMI outputs, multiple different LANs and injections that could be there, as well as microphones and speakers. Here's another showing of that. And this really allows for our larger rooms. And one thing that you should be aware of is that this can also allow you to do a lot of different video inputs and compositing without the need for external components. We just need to make sure it's designed that way correctly. This is a very powerful platform. And it's really important for you to understand that all the technology that's going on behind the scenes here and all be masked by the touch 10. So somebody can go right into a huddle space or into a large auditorium and have the same experience. That is not consistent with the competitors out there. When you look at the RoomKit Pro with the quad cam, here's just an example, and the RoomKit Plus also uses this camera too, so that's why it says that. There's actually 4 5K sensors in here, and it does all the speaker tracking and all the stuff that we talked about before without any moving components. Now, if you go to the all-in-one systems like the Webex Boards, these are really good for creation capabilities, from huddle spaces all the way up to large conference rooms. So there's the Webex Board 55 and the Webex Board 85. So there's really a Webex board size for anybody out there. And it can do a lot of different things. So it can do Webex meetings, audio and video calling. It's a full IP phone as well. Companion mode is when we have a video endpoint on one side of the room and a Webex board on the other side, and they can actually act as one unit. It can register on-prem for our prem users. It can act, any of these endpoints can act as digital signage too. So that's built right in there. It's compatible with Microsoft or any application that's touch enabled using a USB-C connection. And there's all sorts of other things out there. Now on the complete monstrous, the full leap here, and we talk about really where Cisco becomes really impressive is that same huddle space end user experience can be brought all the way to an executive boardroom on a triple screen endpoint. This is the replacement for the IX5000. It's got some really awesome screens on there. It doesn't include the furniture anymore. So just, the IX5000 did include furniture. This is just these 3 screens and the media bar that goes across it, as well as this wall. The wall actually comes with it. And there's also a way to enable Room 70 dual screen endpoint, the Generation 2 specifically to support this type of technology too. But what makes this unique is the fact that we're actually using 2 video streams at one time. So you project both sides of the table without the need to speaker track. And it gives you that immersion capability that you don't have any other way. Now, for our users who have audio only rooms, the problem that's happened over time is, well, now I have a different experience, but I still need to join into a Webex meeting. I still need to share content. Maybe it's not at the same time. Maybe I just need to walk in and share content. And this is really where the Webex Room phone, which is a brand new endpoint, comes in. It builds off the 8832 conference phone, gives you all the fun stuff that happens there, the high quality audio, the microphones, the expandability, but also maintains the touch 10 iconography. So the actual pictures, the call, the share, the join, all this stuff is consistent. And it's also consistent on the application as well, by the way. And that allows us to have a consistent experience. You get the superior audio, you get the wireless sharing, calendar integration, and then you also get the ability to share content directly to it. And this also can act as a digital signage endpoint as well. So there's HDMI in and HDMI out. So this is where it actually fits right in the huddle space portfolio. But the important thing for you to be aware is, again, this is an audio only phone. It can act with all the technology minus the video that the video endpoints do. And now you have a consistent experience for all of your conference rooms, not just your video conference rooms. Now for your executives or people who have co-create rooms, or maybe somebody who's working from home, there's the new Desk Pro, which builds off the DX80 technologies. The DX80 is not going in end of life, but we should consider this a higher end video endpoint. This is more of an EX90 replacement, if you're familiar with that. And this effectively is a Webex board on your desk, ultimately. It looks like this when you look at it. There's actually a little stylus off to the side they call a pen. It's a 27-inch touch monitor, and it offers the USB-C pass-through capabilities we talked about on the RoomKit Mini, but it also allows you to do everything that you would want to do. And the directional microphones apply. The other thing that's different about this is that it's got what's called Best View. So if you're working from home, you probably have your monitor. I'm actually over here. You have your monitor sitting here. and you're going to need to stand up eventually. And what will end up happening is this can actually pan up and follow you while you're standing up. It doesn't follow you around the room, but it'll go up and down with you, which is a pretty awesome capability. And again, it does that accessibility through pass-through. So the important thing to keep in mind is these endpoints are consistent. They scale, they unify, and it allows people to have a better balance. Not just work life like it says on here, but you have a consistent experience. It de-stresses the solution. But if you have a scenario where you only have a bring your own meeting solution, meaning you don't need to have a hard codec, like meaning the actual endpoint is doing the call, this builds off the RoomKit Mini technology, and it strips out some of the other advanced components, disables the codec, and it gives you a remote control. But the nice thing is you can upgrade this to be a full-fledged RoomKit Mini with an upgrade. Adds on a Touch 10 for the touch controller, but it allows you to get the rich audio and the rich camera feed, I should say, that you can't get elsewhere. So if you're to compete it against like a Logitech, for example, the Logitech does have a tendency to be a little bit more cost effective initially, but there's no upgrade path, there's no admin portal, there's no wireless sharing, there's no digital signage. The DNA that Cisco has with all their other endpoints apply here. The only difference is the codec's disabled for now. And when you want to grow, you can do it. So as far as clients are concerned, we talked about the Webex Teams as the unified application. This is your messaging and meetings and calling. And again, it can be modular. So when we talk about messaging, you should know that it's very fluid, and it allows us to communicate to external people without the need of federation, without the need of guest access, and your IT department can still monitor files sent in and out and still keep your DLP, your data loss prevention software, in line as well. So if you ever needed to collaborate with many different groups at one time, you should be aware of the fact that you can do that. So an example here, just pull it over. This is an adoption space that you can be part of. If you want to know more about this, I can certainly send you the link. There's some SMP people in here as well. But there's 2,073 people from all sorts of different companies, from Cisco and elsewhere. You can't do this with a competitive solution. You just can't. All right, and it also does calling. So this is my IP phone. So again, let me pull it back over just so you can see it. Here we go. You know, I got my IP phone here. I got my voicemail. It's all right here. I can set, you know, my single number reach and everything else too. Right. And again, all managed through Control Hub. And the meetings are built right in. And this new top bar, by the way, you're going to see come around late August, maybe September timeframe. And that's consistent with the mobile device. So no matter what device you're on, you're going to have a consistent experience. So again, the Webex differentiation is true end-to-end encryption. You allow cross collaboration between different companies without the need to go into guest modes, without the need for federation. And you can also maintain a better and secure compliance and visibility. And it gives you that 360-degree approach. And we also can interop with pretty much anything under the sun out there. All right, I'm going to speed through this. Let's talk about what's coming in July. There's 4 pictures of me that you probably didn't want, but coming in July, one of the most asked for thing was blur background and virtual desktop support. So this is coming to Webex Teams in July. Should be on track. This is actually a pre-production version that I'm using right here. These are the 4 that are built in. And then coming in on a later release is also the ability to throw your PC as a green screen behind you. It's some pretty slick technologies. But we also have the ability to add external contacts and enhance the ones that you already have. And then screen share to people who are not using Webex Teams. So if you call me on my IP phone, I will still be able to see your screen share. Granted, it might be smaller, but then you should just tell me to get a Desk Pro, right? And then in August, there's some additional administration capabilities on different call types, so you can disable certain things. We'll be able to control all the aspects of the video device. So if you're lucky enough to have a Webex board in your office, you no longer have to get up to disable video. On mobile devices, you'll be able to switch between your front and rear cameras. And then coming in just shortly beyond that, probably in the September timeframe, the unified app is going to start to roll out formally. And that has some additional capabilities that we glanced upon. But if you want to know more about that, please reach out to us and we'll get you some more data. And the modularity, you should be aware these are kind of different things, but they're also part of the same application. The modularity is going to come a little bit later, and that's what's going to allow you to be able to say, hey, I have the Webex application, the Webex Teams application rolled out, but I only have calling mode enabled. I don't have messaging turned on, for example. So when we get into Webex Meetings, Webex has been redesigned to allow you to handle a wide spectrum of what's going on in your typical day. It's designed to be able to allow you to collaborate. And again, this is both internal and external, and you can communicate with other people. So on some other platforms, if you go and you start doing chat back and forth, you won't be able to call them, for example. It's bizarre. In this scenario, they're part of your team. It doesn't matter that they're not part of the same company. And it was designed for a video first experience, and I have a sneak peek coming for you as well. I'm going to speed through a couple of these things. The desktop application, this gives you the one button to push, and eventually will be absorbed right into the unified application. And for people who need to stream to Facebook, to YouTube, to any RTMP or RTMPS streaming service, Webex can do that for you as well. And you have one experience, no matter if you're on a mobile device all the way up to a boardroom. All right. And then the next thing that has come out is the Webex Meeting Assistant, or Webex Assistant for Meetings, I should say. And that allows live translation, live transcription, and note-taking capabilities built right in. This is an add-on license, so if you'd like a quote for that, let us know and we can get one over to you. And then there's also the hybrid services out there, so we can connect into Azure, Active Directory, to Microsoft Exchange or Google, for example, for calendaring. And that's what enables the one button to push functionality we talked about before. And then there's an overall arching solution, which is called Webex Edge. It's not a product that you buy, it's a solution that you buy into. The one that I really wanted to dive into is video mesh, because this has been a talking point for some people at some time. If you have everybody who are doing one-on-one meetings and multi-party meetings, they might be consuming a lot of bandwidth. Might not be an issue right now because people are off-site, but we've watched people go on-site and then suddenly have bandwidth issues because they got used to having video communications at home where they have their own pipe and they come back into the office and suddenly they don't have bandwidth available. Video mesh basically allows you to take a little piece of Webex and bridge on-site. And there's a new version called Video Mesh Lite. I'm not going to get too much into it, but on one server we could deploy up to 150 sessions of 720p, for example. And then for 40.7 for Webex, these are the release notes. A couple things that you should be aware of. There's a lobby mode for video devices and Webex Teams users coming out, and some improvements on video quality. On 40.8, which is coming out in August, you're going to get dual support for VDI, background support for anybody who doesn't have it. And then there's also music mode for any of the colleges or people who need to practice music remotely. It offers a new high fidelity audio option right through Webex for Meeting Center and Event Center. And there's also a push to talk capability of Meeting Center coming out. For 40.9, there's a new meeting experience coming out. This is what it looks like. I know it's a very small picture, but if you're familiar with Webex and where the actual icons overlay on top of everything else, that'll be a thing of the past. This is the new interface. It should be coming out in the September-October timeframe. Oh, one other thing, video breakout rooms will be coming out in 40.9 too. So Cisco Meeting Server is the flagship bridging solution on site. There's a new version coming out, 3.0, which moves us to smart licensing. It deprecates some of the older Econo licensing, and there's a migration path for anybody who has that. We can talk to you about that. But the key of this one is there's some new install and GUI improvements. and enhancements. And then with 3.1, which is coming out later in December, it gives you a video view that will be consistent with Webex Meetings and the ability to do RTMPS streaming, and you'll be able to control the resolution. When we start talking about calling, though, there's Call Manager on-prem, and then there's Webex Calling and UCM Cloud. I'm going to go through the UCM a little bit faster. So UCM has been out for about 20 years, and it's been an industry leader since basically the beginning, scaling from 35 users to 40,000. It allows you to have the 5 nines uptime that you would expect. And on-prem, we have voicemail through Unity Connection, and then there's Expressway, which allows us to bridge into the cloud. That also allows us to enable remote workers. So if you want to know how to get remote work set up, MRA is one of the technologies, as well as Webex Calling, that we'll be utilizing to take a look at that. So some updates for you. 12.5 Service Release 2 allows a simple user self-provisioned enabled IP phone replacement mechanism, which means that if you have one of the older phones that are going to be needing to be replaced, there's a self-service IVR, and the same technology will also be available for analog devices. And then for 12.5 SU3, it's going to add telemetry through what's called the Webex Cloud Connected UC. We'll talk about that in a moment. And it allows for the Android push notification service and some enhancements on Tomcat. One other thing too is if you have a user who needs to bounce from phone to phone through a technology called extension mobility, headsets can now be used starting with 11.5 SU8 or 12.5 SU3 to actually log in a user automatically through a secure mechanism. And then Call Manager 14, which is coming out probably Q1 2021, adds a new UI. It's much improved over top of the existing Call Manager, but it's not foreign for people who are used to it. It's going to also add WebRTMT, as well as some other capabilities. I'm going to speed through this here real quick. So Webex Cloud Connected UC is a new concept for most people. And what that is a future solution. It is still future coming out, which will allow us to manage. At first, it will allow us to view a lot of telemetry data in the Webex Control Hub. But over time, it's going to allow us to gain some administration capabilities. So you're going to have one place to go for your management, whether it's prem or cloud, ultimately is the end goal. Right? So it's going to allow you to have that one global ops view, and it's going to allow all these items to actually be connected. There's going to be a phased approach. So there's Call Manager, IMMP, Unity Connection, Expressway, and your border element. They're going to come out in phases. So wave 1 is going to be really around metrics and reporting, call success, that type of thing. And then wave 2 is going to be certificate management, upgrade enhancements, and troubleshooting. More to come. So shifting gears, though, I want to talk about the cloud calling solutions. I have some updates for you. So Webex Calling, if you've been on those update calls, if not, you should just basically know that Cisco offers Webex Cloud Calling, which is a cloud-based PBX, which gives you over-the-top call control, which means everything's delivered across the internet. And of course, it's exclusively managed through Webex Control Hub. And it replaces Cisco Spark Call. But what it isn't is Webex Meetings. All the meetings, training center, event center, and support centers that exist out there, the meeting platforms, this isn't that. It's not also a replacement for Call Manager because Call Manager is not legacy or end of life. You saw the roadmap, it's being developed. It's also not a contact center, and it's also not a rebranded Spark Call. And it's not PSTN delivery by Cisco. But there's some updates that have been coming out. So Cube High Availability, which is the local gateway, which means now you can actually have 2 gateways on your site and have them be fully redundant if you want to utilize your existing trunks on site. There's a lot of enhancements coming that we just can't talk about yet because they're in testing. But towards the end of this year and beginning of next year, there's a ton of bulk configuration, API enhancements, and new features coming out. And all of that is enabled because the call admin portal, also known as CAP, that is eventually, it's going to be phased out through this year. They've been making waves already on this. And basically what will end up happening is if you buy Webex Control Hub, you'll get a 3-month notice about changes. Once the changes go in, you get 30 days. They exist in both places and they cross-link between the 2 of them. And then after the 30 days, they'll be removed from the legacy portal and moved into Control Hub. So by moving into Control Hub, it's going to allow us to accelerate the bulk and API development. And then there's also Red Sky. So for our users who are moving between prem from your your office environment to house, and you're ping-ponging back and forth because you have swing shifts or anything like that, Webex calling can allow Red Sky to automatically update the location for you, and you also get some additional capabilities to add some very good specifics. And then also double call recording is officially available. So if you need to have call recording and you're looking at Webex calling, you should know that we have that capability. And there's also some artificial intelligence capabilities and integrations available. So UCM Cloud is Cisco's cloud calling solution for the person who has the more complex needs, the person who has a call manager today or needs the call manager like solution, where needs the maximum flexibility, the maximum granularity. All this is hosted right outside of Cisco's Webex data centers in North America, EMEA, and Asia Pac. There's multiple out there. I'm going to give you the specifics behind that. But the key for you to understand is this allows you to have that seamless transition to the cloud. And ultimately, what's going to allow you to do is have video, voice, and everything else. It's just a different platform, but it's still under the Cisco umbrella. Everything that we talked about still works on this platform, and it's all powered through a Flex agreement. So if you've ever lapsed on support on SmartNet, if you've ever had to buy licensing for each and every feature, have you had to use some sort of complex equations and hire a data scientist to understand your licensing? Then Cisco Flex agreements are for you. And what it allows you to do is consume meetings, calling, and contact center in 3 individual tiers under 1 subscription, and allows you to be on-prem, in the cloud, or both, and manage your migration in time. So it's 100% subscription, and it allows you to have that flexibility. So for meetings, we get what's called named user or active user. And for enterprise agreement, that covers everything. And calling, there's named user and enterprise agreement only. And contact centers by concurrent agent. I'm going to fly through these ones a little bit quicker. I apologize. I'm just trying to give Tarek all the time he needs on his stuff. But the enterprise-wide truly is that. Everybody gets entitlements for everything. They can all use it. And you get a 20% growth on top of it. And again, this could be enterprise agreement for calling or meetings. And you can mix and match too. So you could have active users for meetings, for example, and this allows you to give licensing to everybody, but also monitor how they consume it. So you only pay based on an active user percentage. So if you have 15% of your users who are using Webex, then you just pay for that. The minimum commitment is 40 users or 15% of the knowledge worker count. And then every year, months 9, 10, and 11, we monitor the use and we see if there's any changes that need to happen in your subscription. If you're smaller than 250 users, then named user is a great solution for you. And we literally will count users. It's that easy. And then contact center is concurrent agent. So that's how that's licensed. So what you get is a solution that gives you the meetings, messaging, and calling across the board. And again, you can have an enterprise agreement for calling, so everybody gets calling, and then named user in the meetings. And the great thing is you get trade-in credit for what you got, you get the software upgrades, and you get rid of Swiss, the software support for all of the licensing related components. You still have to pay for the hardware support, of course. But this allows you to be able to roll out solutions. So one more example is the Webex Edge services. So the Webex Edge that we talked about, the video mesh, there's also some other capabilities. It's built right into these solutions. So as Cisco has more and more stuff come out, a lot of it is just inherently being added to the Flex agreement as something that you're entitled to. So if you want to move from prem to cloud, you can do it at your leisure. And the Webex Edge allows you to consume a lot of things that are cloud-based on-prem as well. Some pretty cool things about that. So with that, that's it in a nutshell. That's the IP phones, the video endpoints, and the cloud calling and the premise calling. The key thing that I want you to understand is that there's one application, the Webex Teams application, that can overlay the entire solution, whether you're on-prem or in the cloud, And it doesn't matter which cloud you pick. You could be on UCM Cloud or Webex Calling, or you can have a combination of all three if you really want to. But you can have one user experience, and that's Webex Teams. On the video endpoints, you could pick whatever endpoint makes the most sense for you. And ultimately, those endpoints can exist in the prem, cloud, or a combination of both. You don't have to forklift any of this stuff moving forward with Cisco. You get one experience, and we basically put the call control and the capabilities wherever it makes sense for your business. So at the end of the day, let's look at what you need to get, and then we could look at what solution makes the most sense behind it, rather than trying to force feed a solution and then making it just work. Cisco gives you the capability of the Flex agreement to get access to pretty much all the software out there. So we can go and design a licensing structure and a solution that can overlay your needs for today, tomorrow, and beyond. So with that, Tarek, I'm going to hand it over to you for Webex Contact Center and UCCX as well.
Wonderful. Thank you, Dan. That's a great update. And Jennifer, if you can, okay, wonderful. I can share my screen now. All right, wonderful. So again, thank you everyone for your time here. My name is Tarek Sheikh. I will be talking about the Cisco Contact Center portfolio, and followed by a quick overview of the Webex, specifically the Webex Contact Center, a little bit of overview, and then go over the UCCX 12.5, some of the new features that just recently come out. One quick note here. Since I'm going to be talking about I wanted to make sure that I bring this safe harbor statement out there, the forward-looking statement, because some of the features that I'm going to be talking about here are still not GA yet. So this is why I just wanted to put that out there. Looking at the Cisco Contact Center portfolio, on the left side of the screen, the green box shows on-premises contact center with the UCCX, which is basically a small to medium-sized contact center solution designed to handle up to 400 agents. And also this is basically UCCE, also part of the on-prem solution, which is a large contact center, more complex deployments, capable of handling up to 24,000 agents. And on the right side is an HCS, which is basically a partner-hosted solution, allowing you the ability to scale up to 24,000 agents as well. The middle two boxes are the Cisco hosted contact center solutions. They're called Webex Contact Center and Webex Contact Center Enterprise. The Webex Contact Center basically supports up to 1,000 agents, and the Webex Contact Center Enterprise supports up to 24,000 agents. And both of these solutions take advantage of the Webex single global platform, in addition to the advanced speech recognition, experience management, and analyzer for detailed analytics. I'll be talking about more detail on the Webex experience management and the analyzer in the next few slides. So what is a Webex Contact Center? Just so I wanted to provide a little bit overview regarding the Webex Contact Center. So the Webex Contact Center really is a native cloud contact center solution for small and mid-sized businesses or the enterprises. It is easy to deploy and manage with integrated calling and collaboration and enterprise-grade security. Some of the features of the Webex Contact Center are the omni-channel, which allows you to the customer interactions, voice, chat, and email all built into the solution itself. The analyzer, which is a very powerful tool, it tracks and analyzes the customer experience through the entire lifecycle across all channels. It has a built-in on-demand voice and chat collaboration with other agents, managers, and the subject matter experts. So it supports business application integration. It uses the data from business applications like CRM to determine the routing in addition to the screen pops. So out of the box, there are basically third-party integrations available. It also provides the robust reporting capabilities. The outbound campaigns supports the preview as well as the progressive dialing and management. The Webex Contact Center, from a licensing perspective, offers standard and premium agent model via Contact Center Flex subscription plan. The standard agent licenses provides all of the features that you see in front of you on the screen here. And the premium agent really includes all of the standard agent features plus the omni-channel email and chat capabilities. So moving on, I'm going to talk about some of the updates on upcoming updates on the UCCX 12.5. Basically, looking at some of the key themes that the UCCX 12.5 is bringing. It is a Cloud Connect. This is one of the Dan talked about the Webex Cloud Connect. Also, Cisco's from a contact center perspective, also there is basically a feature available within the Contact Center 12.5 Cloud Connect, which utilizing the best and most up-to-date features and solutions that are delivered in the cloud and implementing them with on-prem deployments. So what really is that Cisco is going to start off with the Webex Experience Management, which we'll talk about in a few in the following slides. Webex Experience Management as well as the Customer Journey Analyzer, which is basically Webex Contact Center product, the analyzer. Those will be the two applications that Cisco will start introducing through the Cloud Connect. So any new enhancements on the contact center side, as you can see, the Cisco really is trying to transition on-prem workloads to the cloud by introducing some of the cloud connected options. So that's one of the key themes that Cisco is working on. Besides that, there's the experience transformation. So there are some enhancements on the Finesse desktop. There are some reporting enhancements. And also, with the simplified platform, with the new features and functionality, typically comes, with the more administrative headaches. And however, with the 12.5, this is not the case. Cisco portfolio has a major focus on keeping the portfolio and the platform simple and easy to use, regardless of your role. So 12.5 really brings new features that will really simplify some of the underneath operating system enhancements. And there's always also some of the cognitive or the consistent empowerment, features that basically including the AI stuff that I'll be covering in the next few slides. So let's just talk about briefly what Cloud Connected is. That's basically a service. A Cloud Connected enables on-prem unified CCX solutions to integrate with the different cloud services. The main idea behind the Cloud Connect is to bring the cloud capabilities to on-prem UCCX solutions. The Cloud Connector basically is embedded with the UCCX 12.5 instance. So there is no need for a separate VM installation for this, for at least UCCX. But for UCCE, there's a separate instance that needs to be installed. With the UCCX 12.5, the Cloud Connected services are responsible for now integrating with the Webex Experience Management and the Customer Journey Analyzer, which I'm going to be talking about next. So the Customer Journey Analyzer, this is basically something that Cisco is working on. There are active trials going on right now. It's not GA yet. So the Customer Journey Analyzer is the default reporting platform for Webex Contact Center solution. And it provides great analytic capabilities over and above what the on-prem reporting tool that CUIC can provide. So Cisco is bringing the analyzer as a cloud service for on-prem UCCX 12.5 via the Cloud Connector. So in order to bring this service, obviously, this is where the Cloud Connector come into play here. And also wanted to mention that this will not replace the on-prem CUIC reporting tool. One of the things that this tool can do is actually mash up data from different sources, meaning that if you have multiple on-prem systems, you can ingest data from multiple contact center clusters, multiple UCCX clusters or UCCX and UCC cluster, or multiple external data sources like different CRM like Zendesk or Microsoft Dynamics. You can ingest that data from different social media platforms as well. Initially, as I mentioned about the customer journey analyzer for on-prem CCX will have some predefined reports. First one being the abandoned contact reports. You can review the abandoned contacts dashboard on the customer journey analyzer, which enables supervisors and business analytics to identify, where contacts are being abandoned during that journey. There is basically when the call comes in a queue, that might be one of the reasons, or when the call comes into the IVR, those could be the reasons. So all of those different transactions can be really monitored and looked at through the dashboard. You can use customer journey analyzer to create visualization using the customer activity reports. So there are some reports, basically they are going to be pushed out to the cloud and the analyzer will basically slice and dice the data and provide the reporting dashboards on the customer. Basically, supervisors will be able to log into the reporting tool and see the real-time information there. So that's just quickly going back into this. This again, I just wanted to reiterate that this is a trial. If there are any customers interested in participating in this trial, obviously one of the prerequisites that they have to be on a UCCX 12.5, and we can always, let us know if there are any interest, and we can talk to Cisco and get you guys in the trial. The Webex Experience Management with the Contact Center. So this is another Cisco Webex program that Cisco basically is bringing up on an on-prem contact center. Cisco Webex Experience Management is a formerly Cloud Cherry is Cisco's next-gen customer experience management solution that improves customer and agent experience by giving businesses greater insight across the entire user journey by mapping their experiences across all touch points in the organization before, during, and after the contact center interaction, and using the predictive analytics to make informed decisions on how to improve customer and employee experiences that will create the positive business outcomes. The picture here of a typical customer journey with 5 different components, starting all the way from awareness of a particular product or a solution, maybe customer browsing on the website, and then considering through maybe actually purchasing a product or having services on that product, and maybe expand and grow that in the future. The contact center typically touches only a very small part of the entire customer journey. And that means that the typical agent who is talking to a customer or even the IVR customers using it, not very well aware of what's actually going on in other parts of that service, or what our customers are really experiencing here. So as you can see, when looking at the entire journey, the left section and the right, they're pretty much, from a contact center perspective, we're not aware of what's really happening there. So the Webex Experience Management provides a huge opportunity to see the entire journey. If we can collect data on what happened earlier on, what our customers are experiencing, we can actually use the data to make the experience for the customer more efficient with less effort, more pleasant. Which of of course, leads to a better outcome for the business. That is the central theme around the experience transformation or experience management. Cisco has integrated Webex experience management services with on-prem UC6 and UCC platforms via the Cloud Connector. One of the key elements that Webex experience management uses to collect that data is surveys. With experience management integrated with on-prem UCCX, administrators can configure IVR, SMS, or email post-call surveys to collect feedback directly from customers. They configure the IVR survey when an inline survey has to be played to the customer at the end of a call, or configure the SMS or email survey when a survey link has to be sent to the customer, allowing them to provide feedback after a call at their convenience. So also the administrators can configure and add gadgets that can be viewed on the Cisco Finesse desktop. The gadgets can display a customer experience journey of the customer calling in or aggregated feedback about agents or supervisor performance. The agents, basically the idea here is the agents and supervisors can view the pulse of the customers using industry standard metrics such as NPS, Net Promoter Scores, the customer CSATs, or the CES, or other custom KPIs. So basically, it's just a tool that provides different, during that journey, different types of surveys based on the scenario. So now I'm going to talk about some of the enhancements that are basically available within the Finesse desktop or the UC6 12.5. This is just a list of some of the enhancements. One of the very interesting one is basically the drag and drop resize gadgets. I'll talk about that as well. This one, basically a screenshot shows that now that the shortcut keys for agents and supervisors, state changes are available now. That was one of the things, especially, the agents always had to use the mouse to change their state. Now they can just use the keyboard shortcut. Also, basically updated call variables during active call. Now, this is a scenario when there's a backend database already based on, let's say, any customer calls in, information is showing up in there. Based on what they see on the screen there, and customer tells them something different, let's say the address is different than what shows up in the screen. Now the agent is able to go in and update that particular field. Once they save this information, that can be written back to the database. So that's a nice feature to have because then on the fly, agent has the ability to make updates to the database. And that's another option that shows there. Basically, these are different call variables. Also, from a team performance gadget, that basically agents is able to search up the other team members now that, if there's a longer list of agents there, instead of scrolling through all the way to find the right agent, now you're able to search by the agent name. There's some also enhancements in terms of, from an admin perspective, there's improved layout configuration, UX for the Finesse administrator. Traditionally, the layouts were cumbersome. When you make a change, if you miss something, there's always a problem. But now, with the enhanced UI, it's much easier to make changes on the layouts. And also, the custom reports capability are now available within the UC6 12.5. Basically, agents are able to edit existing stock reports that was not possible with the previous version of CIC. Just quick updates on the and on the editor side, we use the editor basically has been updated now. The UCC editor web launcher, a Java-based application that is supported on the Windows, Mac, and Linux, has been basically introduced, and the plugin just needs to be downloaded to be able to run the application. And finally, the smart licensing basically is a requirement now. Release 12.5 introduces the smart licensing to the contact center portfolio. Cisco Unified CCX customers who are upgrading from older release to 12.5 have an option to continue to use the classic or the traditional licensing or migrate to the smart licensing. A new UCCX deployments will have to move to the smart licensing. So with that, I think that's all pretty much. I'm going to move, get Sean to basically go ahead and take it away and cover the closing.
Thanks so much, Tarek. And if you could just keep control and forward through the slides, that would be great as we finish up here. So if you could move to the first slide, great. So to recap, what Dan Farrell spoke to in the beginning is really an emphasis on Cisco's market share in the collaboration space today, right? It's hard to believe that they still have these kinds of percentages when it comes to on-premise, and highlighting, I think, the market share with regards to the cloud collaboration portfolio, along with meetings and video, is really eye-opening, right? So the acquisition of BroadSoft a few years ago, taking their cloud calling market share right up and now giving them the reach, right, and the breadth and the experience and life of platform is going to continue to keep them ahead in this space. All right, SMP continues to be very, very tightly aligned with Cisco in their go-to-market, and really ensure that our clients understand that the end-to-end collaboration stack, right, is still here. Okay, so Tarek, if you could go to the next slide. So a call to action, right? So how can you get started when it comes to, if you're not an existing client today from a Cisco collaboration perspective, okay, and you just would like to get your feet wet with regards to anything in the stack that Dan and Tarek alluded to, SMP can come in and assess what you have today and talk about how we could potentially get you going right down this path to start to consolidate your collaboration technology. SMP offers a collaboration assessment in a roadmap session, right, that can be as lengthy as you need it to be with deliverables at the end of the day. All right. And this is something that we've done for years, and our clients truly get a lot out of. There's also proof of concepts that we can conduct with you. From a cloud perspective, there's specific trials, right, which are very, very easy to spin up. But for those who still want the level of control, right, and are looking at a UCM solution, if they're thinking prem makes the most sense, keeping it on premise, there's still proof of concepts that we can do with you with trial licensing. All right, so we can sit down, get the applications and workloads up and running for you so that you can trial and play with the technology. All right, that's something that you can work with SMP and Cisco on. All right, when it comes to the trials, all right, as Dan and Tarek both alluded to, these are very, very quick to get spun up, right, because it's cloud technology. So if you're interested in playing with Webex calling and Webex Contact Center and seeing what its capabilities are, this is what we can offer. A free 90-day trial for Webex calling. All right. All the calling services are available that you get with a fully paid license. All right. This includes Cisco Webex Teams, inclusive of the Webex calling app, but also the unified app, which is really Webex Teams, as Dan was alluding to. So all the features and functionality that you would like to play with when it comes to messaging and calling are available in this trial. It's really important for you to note that when we refer to calling, we're just not talking computer to computer calling. We're talking true calling with PSTN access. So you have the ability from your organization, whether sitting in your four walls or sitting at home, to call the PSTN, meaning SMP or Joe's Pizza Shop. It's not just calling somebody else who's using the Webex Teams client. As part of the trial, Cisco IP phones are available and they will be loaned out in limited quantities, so based on your requirements there. And you also get trial PSTN services. That's simply amazing, right? So with those cloud connected PSTN providers, we can spin up trial licenses inclusive with your IP phones and soft clients when you go through the Webex calling trial. What's great about this, there's no committed minimum volume or contract terms as a part of this. All right, Dan and Tarek have spun this up in a day for a client, fully operational, taking advantage of the solution as a whole. Another trial that we can put out there is the Webex Contact Center Quick Deployment. All right. This bundles the premium agent software, so the top of the stack when it comes to features and functionality. PSTN for calling. All right. So true DIDs, inbound and outbound calling into the contact center, inclusive of all of the omni-channel routing and reporting capabilities for up to 1,000 concurrent agents. And we can do this very, very quickly. There's a short-term commitment for 90 days, but for folks who need to be more agile and are looking for a way to provide high-touch customer service to their clients and partners, if you need a more agile contact center and you're looking for being able to take it to the next level and see and do all the things that Tarek just spoke to close this out, the Webex Contact Center Quick Deployment gives you that ability. They give you free toll-free number access and PSTN delivery for up to 90 days. And what's great about Webex Contact Center, as Tarek alluded to, you don't need any VPN connectivity for these services. You can plug a phone in at home, take advantage of the agent desktop, and have a high-end next-generation contact center right in your house or whatever your remote office scenario may be. Next slide. So a quick offer in terms around proof of concepts and trials. All right, so if you progress one more, okay. So SMP, right? The assessment and roadmap services that we would work with you on. All right, so this is typically a paid engagement, and it is a paid engagement every time we do not just a cloud readiness assessment, but any collaboration assessment. If you've got dated legacy collaboration technology, whether it's Cisco or not, sitting on premise, we'll still come in and take a look at what you have and give you a roadmap with associated deliverables. So what we mean by that is not just a roadmap and a timeline or a sequence of events, but any dependencies you may have along the way, right? We will work with you on. It would be a combination of Tarek's team and our customer experience organization that would put this together for you, all right? Typically, a minimum of a $10,000 engagement. And what we were offering here today is up to 100% credit for all of those services and whatever deliverables you choose from the menu in the event that there's a follow-on solution purchase of some kind. So very workshop-y like engagement in the beginning, and then the SMP team goes away and puts together a full-blown plan to get you collaboration ready, all right? Which obviously the pandemic has really made as important as it's ever been before with remote connectivity, okay? So that's how we wanted to close this out. We thank you so much for your time today. As part of our follow-ups, we will reach out to you. There will be a survey coming. And if you want to take advantage of the assessment and roadmap, please ensure that you reach out.